Hello, crafty friends, and welcome to my live. Well, I usually go lives on Sundays, but I just thought I'll pop in and I might not be able to do a live on Sunday. So I was like, okay, this is a good time. My little one is gone out for his swim class, and I said, well, the house is quite empty and silent, so this is the perfect time. So we will be using the Simon's stamp made to flourish set. In my last live also I unboxed the August card kit, and today we will be creating another card, and this was actually the card that I created in my last live, where we used the Distress crayons that were part of the kit and we painted the watercolor panels that were included and then added a little happy birthday sentiment. Absolutely love how this turned out. And well, after the live, my husband did this, and he was really fascinated by how those crayons work, and he really wanted to give it a try. And I gave him the other panel that was in the kit, and I absolutely love how easy this was. I did record the video where he did this, so I will be uploading that, and I'll finish off this card in another video, and stay tuned for that. He found it really easy. He's not at all a card maker, or he does not enjoy watercoloring, but with this technique he found it really simple, and that really shows that this is such a beginner friendly technique to do. So if you watch my last live, you'll see how we created this card. I will leave a link in the description for this video as well. Now I have not yet updated the supply list. I will do it once we are done with the video, because I'm not sure what colors I will use. I have not planned. So this live session was not a planned one. So I'm not sure what colors I will use or what kind of technique I'm going to use. I know I'm going to use the ink smooshing technique. Usually you've seen me do that with normal watercolors and a little plastic wrap. But this time, I'm going to try the ink smooshing with the distress inks. Sorry, the distress crayons. So let's see how that works, and even if it works. So, okay, so my plan is to have a ink smooshed background, and then we will have one of these stamped images on that with a beautiful sentiment. We'll keep it very clean and simple, and the main goal here is to try ink smooshing and to really see if that works. Okay, now this set has some really beautiful sentiments. I will be creating a birthday card and probably adding another little sentiment. So it says happy birthday, and the sub sentiment will be another lovely year blooms. So let's see how that looks everything together. And we will be using this particular stamp set and these two. So we'll create a focal point out of it. So, and also there are coordinating dies available, which not only cut out these big images and the bigger sentiments, but also these little smaller sentiments. So that's a fun little addition to this. Okay, now let's get started. I will start with my ink smooshing first. So I have this panel. This measures 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So usually my panels are 4 by 5 1/4 inches, but this is way smaller than that. So this is an A2 size panel which measures 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I usually like to trim 1/4 inch and create a 4 by 5 1/4 inch. So if you place this is the exact size of the card base. And then this panel, you'll see that little border around the edges, and this one is way smaller. So we have a thicker border around the edges. So 1/4 inch around all four edges is what this will be. So I have this, and we will start with our ink smooshing first. So I am using the Tim Holtz paper, and this is the rough side, this is the smooth side. I usually like to add color or ink on the rough side. Okay. Now, as usual, ink smooshing can be done in two ways. You can either add ink to your work surface and then turn your panel around and just pick up the colors. What I prefer is using an acetate sheet, or this is just some packaging that I had, I think stamp packaging or something. I just store a part of it, and this becomes my palette. So what I like to do is I like to smoosh my ink pads or my watercolors on this, spray it with water, and then turn the packaging upside down so that I get I see where the color goes. So I have more control over that rather than turning my panel upside down. So I will try on this. So we will try both the techniques. So I will show you how to do it on your craft mat versus how to do it here. So let's see. Now I don't have lot many colors. These are the only colors that I have. So we will have to work with them. Now these three were included in last month's kit. We have cracked pistachio, seedless preserves, and spun sugar. So these are the three colors that we have. And these were also part of Simon's kits only. So I have not like have my own. So I guess these were part of one of those previous kits. So we will be using these for the barrels, and these we'll add some color using using these for the flowers. So okay. Now, how we did the last time was to color in the images was just add this on my glass surface, and then I had a little paintbrush filled with water. So this is a watercolor brush pen. All I'm doing is just adding a little bit of that watercolor, spreading it around. So we'll add a lot of water as compared to what we use for just plain watercoloring. And then now I have that purple color on my glass surface. So I'll just turn this panel upside down and pick up some of that color. So there. So the disadvantage for me while I do this is that I don't know where the color goes. So how I like to do it is using the acetate or the packaging sheet. Now, the purpose of the video is trying to ink smoosh with the Distress Crayons, and looks like it's working well. So I'm really happy that this is another uh, technique or another medium that I can use my ink smooshing with. I love creating ink smooshed backgrounds, and I love my watercolors for that. I'm not very good with watercoloring, like really big images, or not an expert on watercoloring. But when it comes to ink smooshing, it's all about having fun with the colors, and I'm all for it. So, okay, so that was adding color to your glass surface. Now, if I'm adding color to the plastic panel, let's see how that works. I'm using the same seedless preserves, and I will add water. I am adding in a lot of water, and now I know where my color should go. So I have a lot more control over that. I'm just going to add it there and there. And then I can just pick this up with some of that watercolor out, and there we get a beautiful transition of that color. So if you feel there's a lot of puddling happening, just put in your paper back and just pull the color out, and then that'll spread the color. See that? So this is where we did directly on the surface, and this is where we have our plastic. So it kind of, I feel, gives two different looks, but I prefer using this because I get a lot more control, and I know, okay, maybe I don't like these splotches, so I can go over it again. So that's it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to place my panel on a microfiber cloth so my surface stays pretty clean. There. Okay. Now let's bring in another color. So this time I'll just clean this one here, and then next I'm going to bring in spun sugar. So there we go. I'll just scribble that in, not a lot, and then I will bring in my brush. Now my brush, the tip already has the seedless preserves. I'm fine with it, but if you want just the pink, I would suggest just squeeze out that water and it'll clean the brush. It's as simple as that. So you just have to squeeze out some excess water and then the brush is clean. Okay, now moving on to this, I'll just add some color and mix this around. It's okay if I get any streaks or something of that sort because I need that. Like, I like the little, that I feel gives a little bit extra texture. So there we go. I'll add a little bit more water and we can place it right there. Now these two colors are very close together, so you won't really see a difference between them. But I just want that little bit of transition happening. I don't want a stark white paper. So if I am not able to achieve that, I'll just go in again with the pink. And this time maybe I'll just add a little less water and make it a lot less diluted. So let's just add some water, not a lot, maybe a drop or so, and let's see if that works. There. Again, like I said, this pink is really light and I well didn't expect it to even show up, but it's a very subtle hint of pink, which I feel matches beautifully with that purple there. So I will go back and forth with the pink until I get a deep enough impression. All right, let's see if this one does the trick. That's pretty good. I know it doesn't show well on camera, but then in person, I can make out the difference between this dark white and the light pink on this side. I'll do the pink here as well. So let me bring back. All right. And then some water. And that's pretty much it. Other side. There. This one shows a lot more. So it's just about going back and forth with the color. You see there, it shows a lot more and it gives a beautiful texture also. So I like that. I will bring in more of that color. I'll just keep building the color till I'm really satisfied with the result. So I am just adding very little water this time because the more water I'm adding, the color gets diluted and a lot lighter, which is kind of not serving the purpose. So that looks good. I love that transition. Maybe I can do that here as well to get that beautiful transition there. A little bit more of that pink. There we go. And some water. Final hint of pink. So we have a background with a fun texture. I really love this. They're beautiful. Okay. Now let's bring in some other colors as well. I'm done with the pink and the purples. Now I want to bring in one of these colors. Let's see how that looks. Probably just around the edges. I won't go in the center. Now this one, again, two ways. You could either directly do it on your surface or like I'm doing, just do it on your little acetate sheet or the plastic wrap that you have. So I will bring in, let's start with the darker shade. Let's see how that works. Okay. Now again, I'll just add some water. dilute it out. And this time, I'll just start with one corner to see how that looks. So it's only if I'm liking that little color. Okay, I kind of like it, so I will move on with it. So I will just continue doing that with walnut stain. So I have walnut stain here, a lot of it. Let's leave it open because I know I'm going to use it. And then add water. Just like we did with the pink, I'm not adding a lot of water here because I do need a little bit of that brown showing. So I am going to just barely touch it there. That kind of gives it a very distressed look. So this is why I like doing it with the plastic wrap, because I can exactly see where the color is going. And that really helps me, figure out what the next stage would be. Do I need more color, or like, I'm done with that. So let's add some more of that walnut stain. Water. And then other thing I like to do is just fold it in and just drag the color, or just, just to make sure that I'm getting a clean impression there. Just like that. A little bit over here. Just building up the color. Okay. A little bit here and there. And then let's go to the bottom. There, and final side. Perfect. Oh, with a little bit of that color. So that's my background panel. I love how beautiful that looks. Okay. So before I start working on our focal point image, I just wanted to add a little splatter to this. So I will bring in my uh, Positively Perfect black splatter medium and a little bit of gold splatter. So these are both by Simon, and this is how it looks. So these are the splatters that I added in the previous cut. So I was just really liking the splatters and that against that beautiful watercolor background. So let's just do that. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So for my splatter mediums, I'll make sure I shake it very nicely so that if there's any pigments that settle down, we can just pull it out. And oops, I got all that in my hand first. And now what I do is with a regular paintbrush, I just make my paintbrush a little extra wet, and then I'm going to pick in that watercolor and very gently tap. Not a lot. All right, that should be good. Okay, my light just went off. Let me just connect it. A lot better. So I really love the splatter medium, but I kind of personally find it a little messy, especially the black one. Like, I don't know if I'm using it wrong or uh, uh, it just comes like it just oozes out. So I really like this product a lot. I wish it came in like a jar or a little more user friendly. I really don't like the packaging is what I would say. And then my hands get really messy with that. And okay, the next one is this gold. Now this one, the pigment is definitely settled, so I will give it a good shake. And then I usually don't use the same brush that I use for my black because I don't want to contaminate the color. And now since this is just a splatter medium, I would definitely not need like this big wide opening. So I think yeah, that's definitely a personal thing. So okay, another way I like to splatter is just tap it onto something. So I'll just pick in more color and just tap. All right, that should be it. Okay. And I also kind of find it a little scary because, just in case I just I hit it or my hand just goes there and everything falls over. It's not just messing with the work surface, but then I also feel like, what if it just falls on my card? Or as much as I love splattering, I also like having something which is a little more user friendly, what I feel. So, okay, I will let this panel dry and we will work on our focal point image. Now for that, what I'm going to do is I will be stamping this floral image, this barrel, the happy birthday sentiment, and the little sentiment that says another lovely year blooms. So I have another watercolor cardstock panel where I will be stamping all of these. And we will be coloring in them, and then we will also be die cutting the images. So here you go. This one, my little happy birthday, and this one. Okay. So I'll be stamping these using pigment ink, and then we'll be heat setting it with some embossing powder. So here I have my image, both my images. And then I will also be stamping my sentiments. We will be die cutting all these, including the thin sentiment. Okay, this makes it a lot more messy. Okay, let me grab my stamp wheel and we can get stamping. So here you go. I'll just make sure my paper is stuck to the stamp wheel. I don't want any of that moving because I might do a double stamping there. So I like if I know there's a lot of stamping happening, I do all the stamping at once. I do all the die cutting at once. That way, we don't have to bring the stamp wheel again. Like if I were to just stamp the focal point image and then bring out my stamp wheel again for the sentiments, that would be like taking a long time. So this is something that I always prefer doing. I bring all the uh, stamps first and then I bring out all the die cutting next. So that way I stay a little more organized and on time. Because being a toddler mom, I think that's another reason why I do that, because I need to get to my little one ASAP. He would be like, Mama, Mama, Mama. And then I'd be like, okay, I cannot waste a lot of time. So, yeah, that's about it. We will go ahead and use some anti-static powder. Now, this is the very first time I'm using this stamp set. So, I will just rub it with my fingers to condition it, just like that. And then I am going to use the Obsidian Pigment ink. I really love this ink. Okay. Another pigment ink that I love is the Nocturne, the Versafine Clair Nocturne ink. This again is by Simon, and I really love this one as well. But I have been using the Obsidian Pigment ink lately, so I just thought I'll stick with it. All right. Let's just stamp this and maybe another stamping. So this one looks good, so I'll just take that out. I don't want to stamp it again. So when there are like really tiny sentiments or stamped pieces, I don't prefer stamping it the second time because it might splotch a little, and especially with papers like these. These are the watercolor papers, so it has a little bit of those what do you say, texture to it. So I really don't want the panel to smudge. And I'm using the same exact paper because it should match with my background as well. Because if I'm using a regular white cardstock, now this is the cardstock that I have and the color is really different. So I don't want that. That's the reason I'm stamping on the same watercolor panel. Okay, maybe just one more because I need a little extra stamping right there. Okay, there. Perfect. I'll just pick that up, place it here, and then we can go ahead and add our embossing powder to this. Okay. I'll be just a sec. I just realized I didn't have like a printer paper set. I must have used it for something else. So, well, okay. So I am using the Altenews clear embossing powder for this one. Adding that to all of the images. Now I add a generous amount of the embossing powder and I will tap this like this instead of just dropping the embossing powder, because again this is a textured paper. I do that with normal cardstock as well, but since this is a textured paper, we really need to be extra careful that all of that stamped image gets the embossing powder. And then once I feel it's okay, I'll just drop everything down. And I will also tap so that if I have any stray embossing powder, it just falls off. All right. So we can funnel this back in. just clean that, and then I will make sure my heat gun is nice and hot before I bring it onto my paper. I'll start from the back of the paper. And then come onto the front. There you go. Perfect. Yes, that looks absolutely amazing. That shine. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do, I will give it a few seconds to cool down. The panel is really hot, and I will just, wave it around to just cool the panel down, because if I were to directly add my dies to this and run it through my embossing folder or color this in, there are chances that the embossing powder is still hot and it might smudge. So we'll just let it cool down for a bit. And also, I'm using the same distress crayons. I'm using the same exact colors to color these in. You could definitely use your alcohol markers as well. Okay. So now that this is nice and cool down, we will add our dyes on this. All right. Now I did go ahead and set the dyes aside because there's a lot of dyes in the set, and I didn't want to, during the live, be a little confused of which one goes on which sentiment. So I just picked out the dies, and now all we have to do is layer them. So I usually like to hold them with some washi tape. You could definitely use some masking tape or post-it tapes, but I prefer these washi tape. These are older washi tapes, so they are a lot less tacky as compared to the brand new ones. So I don't throw them away if it loses its tack. I just use it for, to hold my dies in place, and it's really easy to tear also. So that's another advantage. Okay, I will line these up. I will die cut these before I color them in. So that's always what I do. I die cut my images before adding any color to the images. All right. I'll just cut a few pieces and place it on my hand so that I have there. Next, we'll cut in our floral piece. And for this one, be there. Okay. Now we will be adding the dies to our sentiments. Again, I'm just cutting little pieces. The sentiments can be a little tricky because these are really, especially these ones, these are really tiny. So just make sure, you place them right. And this one. All right. So I like to take my time for this. I don't, rush, especially cutting my sentiments. But let's see. I'm really hoping it comes perfect. There we go. And one little piece. Okay. Now we can run this through our die cutting machine. Okay, this kind of move like this. Get more of that washi tape. Secure everything down perfectly. I really don't want it to be moving around. Because this is like a thicker paper and then we've used a lot of heat on that, there are chances of it moving around. See, we don't want any of that movement, especially when we are die cutting. Guy on this one. A lot of washi tape. Now I will just go ahead and place this onto my die cutting plates and then we can run it through our die cutting machine. So I'm using the Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine and I absolutely love this machine. I have had it for I think 4 or 5 years now. So this is my absolute favorite when it comes to manual machines, and I also have an electronic machine. I have the Gemini Junior. I rarely use them. I use them only if I need like a very intricate die cut. Uh, that's when I use. Okay, so look at these. Isn't that absolutely stunning? I will pull this out. This little guy and sentiment. So looks like everything is perfect. Beautiful. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is at this point, I'm really not sure if I'll use that little sub-sentiment. Let's see how it goes. Or I might just stamp this on the inside of the card. So I'm not sure. So this is what we have for now. And we will color this in before we add it to our card base. So again, I'm using the same exact colors. I will start with my barrel for which I'm using walnut stain. And it's the same coloring that we did last time. I'll just pick up some of that color over there and then we'll just very lightly color this in. Now if I need like a darker shading, what I'm going to do is I am going to add a little extra color on the edges that makes my barrel darker on one side and then I'll just pull the color to the other side. So that's like creating a shadow effect. So I will just add water and just pull that color in. Pull the color in without adding more extra color. So that way you have darker on this side and then as you go here, the color gets a lot lighter. Let's pick up some water. I wouldn't squeeze water directly on this. I will just squeeze some water on my work table and then just pull in the color. This way. Pretty simple. There we go. So that's my barrel. Let me just bring it up close. So you see it's a lot darker on one side and I just pull the color towards the other side. So that kind of creates a little bit of shadow effect. Next for my flowers, let's clean the work surface. I'll clean my brush, just remove any of that excess water out and my brush is as good as new. So there, and then we'll add some greens and pinks on our flowers. So okay, let's start with the seedless preserves. Um, we have a little bit of the pink, which is spun sugar. And then we have our green, which is cracked pistachio. Okay, I will start with pink and I'll add it on all the flowers there. There are really tiny little flowers. Another fun way to do this would be leaving the flowers as is. Like you don't want to color in the flowers. So just leave it black and white. That also gives it a beautiful look. Another one thing that I like to do is just add color all over. So instead of having a white background, I'm having a pink background. So that also gives a different look. So I'm just picking up a little bit of that pink and just trying to tone down all the white, just like we did with our background. There. Now we can go with the darker purple and then just color in all our flowers. Not a lot of color, just enough for our flowers. That's so it, like I said again, it does not have to be perfect at all. Okay, so I'm done with my flowers and then I have a little pink hue. I will go ahead and clean my brush, squeeze out some water, and then I'll pick up the greens for my leaves. So there we go, a little bit of green on every leaf. There. This definitely is, again, I'll mention again that this is definitely one of those designs where you don't need to be like an expert level watercoloring artist. It's a very beginner friendly technique and I absolutely love how easy this is. That's it. So that's our, this is how it'll look on my card. There. A very clean and simple card. Okay. So how I am going to do this is I need to add this inside my barrel. I really wish there was a slit in the barrel, but then we don't have that. So what I'm going to do is I didn't find my craft knife, so I have this little box cutter. I'll just stick a bit out of it, and then what I'm going to do is I will place it on some paper, a scrap piece of paper. So, so I have this packaging from the card kit. I'll just place it on that and just create a little slit. enough for our stamped image to go in. So there. I have never really done something like this on my cards, like cutting the paper, especially with something like this. And I really don't, feel confident using an X-Acto knife either. That's the reason I can't find it. I'm sure it's tucked away somewhere. So yeah, let's just tear it a little bit more. And I am definitely not the right person to do this. So if any of you have an easier way to do this, please let me know in the comments. Okay, there we have it, a little slit, and I will just tuck in right there. I'll just turn it around and put a little bit of double-sided tape there to hold it down. I'm not going to remove the backing from the double-sided tape. This is just to hold it in place. So just like that. You could use any tape. You could even use the washi tape that you have. This will just hold everything in place. Now, there's a little twine that was part of the kit. I'll just use this around my image and tie it around the barrel. A couple of times and then just tie a knot here. Hold this in place with my... So this is what I love about the Simon kits. Like, there are components in the kit that really make you go out of your comfort zone. Like, if you've been watching my cards or my videos, you know these are not techniques that I would ever use. Like, I don't know how to tie a knot, or I wouldn't cut my panel using an X-Acto knife. But these are the things that make me fall in love with these kits. They make card making so much more than your usual stuff that you do. So there, I know the bow is not perfect, and I'll be frank, I don't know how to tie a bow. So yeah, I'm not very good at all those things. But yeah, I'm really glad that I tried this, because this is something that I wouldn't have otherwise done. So it's almost like pushing me out of my comfort zone, and I'm glad I did that. Now I will be popping this up using some foam tape. So I will add a little bit of foam tape in the back. And that will also hold my um, twine in place. So I know it's not going to move around when I stick it on my carpets. Okay, there we go. There, over here. So I'll just tuck little pieces in. You can definitely use those little foam squares, but then this one works too if you don't have those foam squares. This works just fine. So we have a lot of foam tape back there. Now all we have to do is place it on our carton. Now, one thing I want is, for me right now, the background looks a little bit dull. So what I'm going to do is I am going to try to find out colors that are pretty close to these two colors and just ink blend them, because, well, as much as I love ink blending, I think this background could use a little extra color and just brighten it up. So I am going to pick up bubblegum, which I feel is pretty close to spun sugar, and also the lightest shade of pink that I have in my stash. And I will just add a little bit of that color. So not a lot, just to brighten up my background. And don't worry, the ink won't smudge. The splatters that we did, that's not going to smudge. So I'm not being very specific with the colors. Just add in a few splotches of these shades of pinks and purples. So there. Next, I will bring in orchid. Um, oh, that'll just deepen the color, but we still get to see that beautiful texture that we did with our Distress Crayons. And then for the last one, which is my absolute favorite when I'm creating a vintagey kind of look, is adding a little bit of the Distress ink. Let me find my blending brush that I use only for Distress ink, with this brown guy. So there. So this is a blending brush that I use only for my Distress ink. Same way I have one for blacks as well. This one. So these are the two blending brushes that I have separate for my blacks, especially if I'm ink blending with a little bit of black. This is what I use. And this one is for my Distress inks. I will just add Distress ink on all four sides just to enhance that color a bit. That will kind of give it more of that vintage feel. There you go. Okay. And just a little more to match with our black splatters, I will add a little bit of black. Now for black, I will either use charcoal, which is the darkest shade. If I want like crisp black, I would usually go in for the Memento ink. That also gives good results. So, or even this one, the crisp jet black ink. Now, right now, I don't want a lot of that black to be seen. So just a little bit. It's more of like adding a shading around the browns just to deepen the brown. So I don't want a lot of that black. So that's why I'm using charcoal. That's it. So we have that absolutely gorgeous, almost vintage style. And well, like I said, I may not use the little sub sentiment, but I can keep it and like, have it for another card. But this is what it would be like. So let's see. I think I'll skip the little sub sentiment for this card. Okay, and then add just our happy birthday sentiment. What do you think? I think that looks good. Okay. Now, another thing that I need is a card base. So My two options would be putting it on a green card base. Hmm, I don't think so. Or the usual white. I think this looks good. Okay. I will pop this up. Okay. So I forgot to clean my craft surface. Let's just clean this before I put my white cardstock or card base over it, because I don't want any of that black getting on my card panel. Now I'll just pop this up with some foam tape. This one measures 1/2 inch, and this is something I got off of Amazon, so I will be sure to link down. But I really love using this tape. It kind of gives me that full coverage. Especially with, I do love using foam tape, but especially when it comes to watercolor card panels, they're a lot thicker, and with all that water that we add, they kind of tend to warp a lot. So adding foam tape really kind of flattens it down. Just make sure I stand and get this position right. There we go. What I'm going to do is place my focal point image right there, and this one I left it bright white because I really need that pop of color. So I really like the brown and black background and the little pink in the center, but if you take a closer look, you can see all that beautiful texture even from the browns. So there are two options. We could either place it like this way, or we could do it in the center. I think we'll just give it this way so we get to see that beautiful background as well. So I will go ahead and remove all the foam tape. And little bits. All right. I'll just place it there, trying to stay within the frame. And then I'll press it down. And for my happy birthday, I need a little extra foam tape on this side because it'll hang over the edge. So I'll add foam tape on the birthday sentiment and just trim this down. I'm using the same foam tape that I used for my image so that I get the same height. I hope that makes sense. There. Okay. And then I'll add a little bit of glue on the side. Right, and a little bit of glue on the foam tape just to give it a little bit of wiggle room before I place it down. I'm going to hold this with my right. And there we go. And that's pretty much it. I'm not going to add any sequin mix for this because I feel the splatters and all that texture does the work. And I wanted a little vintagey look. The shine might kind of take out from that vintage, especially the twine that we've added here and all the browns. So I think I'll leave it as is. And well, our technique was a hit. I really wanted to try ink smooshing with these distress crayons. I've done it so many times with watercolors, ink pads, and distress inks, even the Simon positively saturated inks. They are also perfect for this technique, and I absolutely love how this turned out. Now I'll make sure I post links of all the supplies that I used, including these distress crayons, the ink pads, the blending brush, and everything in the description box below right after the video so that you don't miss out on that. And please note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. I must say this kit is out of stock, it's sold out, but Simon is coming up with the September card kit today. Well, tonight, midnight Eastern time. So do check that out. I will leave a link to the subscription kit. It's a monthly subscription. So, and they release a subscription the 14th of every month. So you get to see every little detail, and the kits are usually jam packed with stamps, dies, embossing folders, stencils, and so many other fun things. So I really feel this is a great value product, and you get to use all the coordinating products together or on their own as well. So, well, yeah, so this is our card for today. Here's a closer look. I absolutely love how this turned out, and I really thank you for joining me here today. Bye bye.